The restaurant was one of those fancy places where the silverware gleamed under soft lighting, and every table had a small vase with fresh flowers. Rachel sat alone at a table near the window, her phone in her hand scrolling through old photos. She wasn't really hungry. The plate in front of her had barely been touched. It was a Tuesday evening and the restaurant was only half full. Most tables had couples or business people discussing deals over expensive wine. Rachel stuck out like a sore thumb. A woman dining alone at a place like this always drew attention, though she wished it didn't. She stopped scrolling when she reached a photo from exactly 5 years ago. Her wedding day. She remembered every detail of that morning. The way the sunlight streamed through the church windows, how her hands shook as she held the bouquet, the sound of Michael's voice when he said, "I do." 5 years. It felt like yesterday and a lifetime ago at the same time. Michael had been gone for 3 years now. Heart attack. No warning. One morning he kissed their daughter goodbye, went to work, and never came home. Just like that, Rachel became a widow at 32 with a 7-year-old to raise alone. She twisted the wedding ring on her finger. She still wore it. Some people thought that was strange, but she didn't care what they thought. It was her way of keeping him close. "Ma'am, would you like me to clear your plate?" A young waitress appeared at her elbow, looking concerned. "No, I'm still working on it," Rachel lied. The girl smiled politely and walked away. Rachel had promised herself she would do this. Every year on their anniversary, she would go out to a nice restaurant and celebrate the life they had together instead of sitting at home crying. But sitting here alone, surrounded by happy couples, was harder than she expected. At the table next to hers, a man sat alone as well. He was older, maybe in his early 40s, dressed in an expensive suit. His phone kept buzzing, but he ignored it. He looked frustrated, checking his watch every few minutes like he was waiting for someone who wasn't coming. Rachel didn't pay much attention to him. She was lost in her own thoughts, trying to remember Michael's voice. That was the worst part about grief, the way memories started to fade. She could see his face in photos, but sometimes she struggled to remember exactly how his laugh sounded, or the way he used to hum in the shower. Then she heard them, 3 men at a table across from her, their voices getting louder with each drink they ordered. Business types, judging by their suits and the way they talked about deals and clients. But their conversation had shifted to something else now. "See that one sitting alone?" one of them said, not even bothering to lower his voice. "Bet she got stood up," his friend laughed. "Or maybe she's waiting for someone to come rescue her from her boring life." The third man, who was clearly the drunkest, said something crude that made Rachel's face burn. She looked down at her plate, trying to ignore them. This was exactly what she didn't need tonight. The man at the next table had heard them too. She saw him glance over at the group, his jaw tightening. He looked at Rachel, then back at the men, and she could see him making a decision. He stood up, and for a second Rachel thought he was going to confront them. But instead he walked calmly to her table. When he reached her, he leaned down slightly and spoke in a low voice that only she could hear. "I know this is going to sound strange," he said quietly, "but would you mind if I pretended to be your husband for a few minutes? Those men over there are being disrespectful, and I thought if they saw you weren't alone, they might stop." Rachel looked up at him, surprised. His eyes were kind, genuinely concerned. There was no hidden agenda in his face, just honest decency. In that moment, something about his sincerity made her nod. "Okay," she said softly. He smiled with relief and slid into the seat across from her. "Thank you. I'm Daniel, by the way." "Rachel." Daniel picked up the menu like he'd been sitting there all along. He spoke in a normal voice now, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "Sorry I'm late, honey. That meeting ran way longer than I expected." Rachel found herself playing along. "It's fine. I ordered for myself already." Good. "How was your day?" For a moment, Rachel forgot this was pretend. "Exhausting, actually. My daughter had a meltdown this morning because she couldn't find her favorite shoes. We were late for school, and then I had back-to-back meetings all afternoon." Daniel chuckled. "How old is your daughter?" 7. Her name is Lily. 7 is a tough age. My nephew just turned 7, and he's convinced he can survive on nothing but chicken nuggets and apple juice." Rachel laughed. It surprised her, the sound of her own laughter. She couldn't remember the last time something had genuinely amused her. The rude men at the other table had gone quiet. They paid their bill shortly after and left, barely glancing in Rachel's direction. The manager had noticed Daniel sitting down and assumed they were together. He came over with a smile. I see your companion arrived. Would you like to see the dessert menu? We have a lovely chocolate soufflé tonight. Daniel looked at Rachel with raised eyebrows, silently asking if she wanted to continue the act. Something in his expression, maybe the warmth, maybe the lack of pressure, made her want to say yes. That sounds nice, she said. The manager nodded and left to place the order. Daniel leaned back in his chair and they fell into an easy conversation. He told her about his disastrous attempt to help his sister build a backyard treehouse that ended with him stuck on the roof. She told him about the time Lily decided to give their elderly dog a makeover with finger paints and glitter. When the soufflé arrived, they shared it. Rachel couldn't remember the last time she'd shared dessert with anyone except Lily. It felt strange and comfortable at the same time. This is really good, she said, taking another bite. It is. Though I have to confess I usually just order whatever sounds the most expensive and hope it tastes good. That's a terrible strategy. I know. But I spend most of my time working, so fine dining isn't exactly my specialty. What do you do? Daniel hesitated. I run a manufacturing company. It's not as exciting as it sounds. Lots of meetings and paperwork and dealing with problems. Sounds stressful. It can be. But it keeps me busy, which is sometimes what I need. There was something in the way he said it that made Rachel think he understood loneliness too. Not the same kind as hers, maybe, but loneliness nonetheless. When they finished the dessert, Daniel insisted on paying the bill. You helped me out by playing along. It's the least I can do. They walked out to the parking lot together. The evening air was cool and Rachel pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. When they reached her car, she turned to face him. Thank you for tonight. You didn't have to do that. Those guys were jerks. I couldn't just sit there and listen to it. Rachel took a breath. Today has been really hard. It's my anniversary. My husband and I got married 5 years ago today. He passed away 3 years ago and I've been trying to... Her voice caught. I've been trying to celebrate instead of mourn, but it's harder than I thought. Daniel's expression softened with understanding. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card, then borrowed her pen and wrote something on the back. That's my personal number, he said, handing it to her. If you ever need a pretend husband again, or if you just want someone to talk to who won't judge, call me. No pressure, no expectations. Rachel looked at the card, then at him. Why are you being so nice to me? You don't even know me. Maybe that's exactly why, Daniel said gently. Sometimes it's easier to be honest with a stranger. And sometimes we all just need someone to sit across from us so we don't feel so alone. Rachel drove home that night with the business card in her purse, thinking about the stranger who had shown her more kindness in 2 hours than she'd experienced in months. She didn't know if she'd ever call that number, but having it made her feel a little less alone in the world. 3 weeks passed before Rachel looked at that business card again. It sat in her wallet behind her driver's license, and every time she opened it, she saw Daniel's handwriting on the back. His personal number. She must have looked at it 100 times without actually doing anything about it. Life had gotten busy. Lily was preparing for her school's spring festival, and work had piled up at the architecture firm where Rachel managed projects. Between parent-teacher conferences and client meetings, Rachel barely had time to think about that evening at the restaurant. But then came the notice from Lily's school. A father-daughter dance. Rachel stared at the colorful flyer that Lily had shoved into her hand, her heart sinking. Mom, can we go? Lily asked, her voice small and uncertain. Rachel knelt down to her daughter's level. Sweetheart, you know it's for fathers and daughters. I know. But Katie said some kids bring their uncles or grandfathers. Could Grandpa come with me? Rachel thought of her father, who lived 6 hours away and had a bad hip that made dancing impossible. Grandpa isn't feeling well these days, remember? Lily's face fell. She nodded and walked to her room without another word. Rachel heard the door close softly and it broke her heart. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. There was the camping trip for fathers and sons that Lily couldn't attend. The donuts with Dad breakfast at school. Every time Rachel saw her daughter retreat a little more into herself. That night, after Lily was asleep, Rachel sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea she didn't drink. The business card was in front of her. She picked up her phone 3 times and put it down twice. The third time she dialed before she could change her mind, it rang 4 times. She was about to hang up when she heard his voice. Hello? Daniel, this is Rachel. From the restaurant 3 weeks ago. I don't know if you remember. Of course I remember. How are you? The genuine warmth in his voice made her relax slightly. I'm okay. Listen, I know this is crazy, and you can absolutely say no, but I have a strange favor to ask. I'm listening. Rachel took a breath. My daughter's school is having a father-daughter dance next Friday. She's been so withdrawn since they announced it, and I was wondering if you might be willing to take her. I know it's a lot to ask. We barely know each other. But you were so kind that night, and I just thought maybe... What's her favorite color? Daniel interrupted. What? Your daughter. What's her favorite color? For the corsage. Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. Purple, lavender specifically. I'll be there. What time should I pick you both up? You don't have to do this. I know I don't have to. I want to. Text me your address and the time. Rachel ended the call and sat in her kitchen staring at her phone. She wasn't sure if she'd just made a wonderful decision or a terrible mistake. When she told Lily the next morning, her daughter's reaction was cautious. Who's Daniel? He's a friend of mine. A very nice man who offered to take you to the dance, relying, but he's not my dad. No, honey, he's not. And he's not trying to be. But he's someone who wants to help, and I think you'll like him. Lily didn't say anything else, but Rachel saw the flicker of hope in her eyes. Friday evening arrived faster than Rachel expected. She dressed Lily in a purple dress that brought out her eyes, and the little girl stood nervously by the window, watching for Daniel's car. When he pulled up, Rachel opened the door before he could knock. Daniel stood there in a nice suit, holding a small clear box with a lavender corsage inside. You must be Lily, he said, kneeling down to her height. Your mom told me purple is your favorite color. I hope I got the right shade. Lily nodded shyly, looking at the corsage. It's pretty. May I? Daniel asked, opening the box. He carefully slipped the elastic band over Lily's wrist, adjusting it gently. There, perfect. Rachel watched the interaction, her throat tight. Daniel wasn't overdoing it or trying too hard. He was just being present and kind. In the car, Daniel asked Lily about school. At first, she gave one-word answers, but when he asked about her favorite subject, she opened up a little. Science. We're learning about the ocean. The ocean? That's fascinating. What's your favorite thing about it? The animals. Especially dolphins. Did you know they can recognize themselves in mirrors? That means they're really smart. I didn't know that. That's incredible. Have you ever seen a dolphin in person? Lily shook her head. Mom says maybe we can go to an aquarium someday, but we're always too busy. Daniel glanced at Rachel in the rearview mirror. Well, maybe we can all go together sometime. If your mom doesn't mind, of course. The school gym had been transformed with streamers and balloons. Music played from large speakers, and girls in fancy dresses twirled around the dance floor with their fathers. Lily held Daniel's hand tightly as they walked in, and Rachel could see her daughter scanning the room, taking in all the happy families. Go have fun, sweetheart, Rachel said, kissing Lily's forehead. She would wait in the lobby with the other mothers who weren't dancing. Daniel looked down at Lily. Ready to show me your dance moves? Fair warning, I'm pretty terrible at dancing. That made Lily smile. Really? Really? I'll probably step on your toes at least twice. They headed onto the dance floor, and Rachel found a seat near the door where she could watch through the window. Other mothers sat around her, some chatting, some on their phones. One woman leaned over. Is that your husband? I haven't seen him at school events before. He's a friend helping out, Rachel said simply. On the dance floor, Daniel was teaching Lily a basic box step, exaggerating his movements and pretending to lose his balance. Lily laughed, actually laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound Rachel had heard in weeks. Other girls and their fathers danced nearby, but Lily seemed focused only on Daniel, trying to mirror his steps. Then Rachel saw someone she hadn't expected. Victoria Shaw walked into the gym with her daughter from her second marriage. Victoria was Daniel's ex-wife. Rachel knew this because she'd Googled Daniel after their first meeting, just to make sure he wasn't some kind of serial killer. The search had revealed he was the CEO of Chen Manufacturing, and among the results was an old Society page article about his divorce 5 years ago. Victoria spotted Daniel immediately. Her expression shifted from surprise to something harder to read. She said something to her daughter and started walking toward the dance floor. Rachel's stomach nodded. This was going to be awkward. Victoria reached Daniel just as the current song ended. Daniel, I didn't expect to see you here. He turned and Rachel saw him stiffen slightly. Victoria. How are you? I'm fine. This is my daughter, Sophie. She gestured to the 8-year-old beside her. Sophie, this is Mr. Chen. Daniel smiled at the little girl. Nice to meet you, Sophie. He put his hand on Lily's shoulder. This is Lily. We're dance partners for the evening. Victoria's eyes swept over Lily, then looked around as if searching for someone. Where's her father? He passed away, Daniel said quietly but firmly. I'm here as a friend of the family. Something in Victoria's expression shifted. Maybe it was surprise, maybe something else. I see. Well, it's very kind of you. The tension was thick enough to cut. Lily looked confused, sensing something was wrong but not understanding what. Daniel seemed to pick up on this. Lily, why don't we get some punch? I'm pretty thirsty after all that dancing. They walked away together, leaving Victoria standing there. Rachel watched from her spot in the lobby, her heart pounding. She hadn't expected complications like this. 20 minutes later, Daniel and Lily emerged from the gym. Lily was holding a small trophy. Apparently there had been a silly dance contest and she and Daniel had won for most creative moves. Mom, look what we got. Lily ran over, her face glowing with happiness. That's wonderful, baby. In the car on the way home, Lily talked nonstop about the dance, about the games they played, about how Daniel taught her to do a silly spin move that made everyone laugh. Rachel listened, grateful and overwhelmed. When they pulled up to the house, Daniel walked them to the door. Lily hugged him quickly before running inside to show Rachel's mother, who was babysitting her trophy. Thank you, Rachel said. You have no idea what this meant to her. To both of us, she's a great kid, smart, funny. You're doing an amazing job with her. I saw your ex-wife there. Daniel's smile faded slightly. Yeah, that was unexpected. Was it awkward? I'm sorry if... Don't apologize. Victoria and I have been divorced for 5 years. We're civil, but seeing her is always a reminder of everything that went wrong. He paused. She wanted a certain lifestyle. I worked constantly to provide it, but it was never enough. When we lost our baby, his voice caught. When we lost the baby, instead of grieving together, we drifted apart. She wanted to keep trying, to keep moving forward. I needed time. Eventually, she found someone else who could give her what she needed. Rachel touched his arm gently. I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly painful. It was. But you know what? Tonight, helping Lily, seeing her smile, that meant something. It reminded me that there's more to life than work and regrets. They stood on the porch for a moment, the spring evening cool around them. Rachel realized she didn't want him to leave yet. Would you like to come in for coffee? It's the least I can do, Daniel smiled. I'd like that. Saturday morning came with Lily bursting into Rachel's bedroom at 7:30, which was sleeping in by their household standards. Mom, can we go to the aquarium today, please? Rachel groaned and pulled the pillow over her head. Honey, it's expensive and we have groceries to buy and Daniel said maybe we could all go together. He said so last night. Rachel peeked out from under the pillow. Her daughter's eyes were bright with hope. The same look she used to have before Michael died, back when Saturday adventures were just normal parts of life. He probably didn't mean this Saturday, sweetie. Can we ask him? Please, Rachel sighed. She knew when she was beaten. Fine. But if he's busy, we're not going to bother him about it. Deal. 20 minutes later, Rachel found herself texting Daniel. The message felt awkward to write. Hey, this is Rachel. Lily won't stop talking about the aquarium. Obviously no pressure, but she wanted me to ask if you were serious about going sometime. His response came faster than she expected. How about today? I'm free this afternoon if you are. Rachel stared at her phone. A successful CEO with nothing to do on a Saturday afternoon? That seemed unlikely. But Lily was already dancing around the living room when Rachel told her. So backing out now wasn't an option. They met at the aquarium at noon. Daniel was waiting by the entrance in jeans and a casual shirt, looking more relaxed than Rachel had ever seen him. He had 3 tickets already purchased. You didn't have to buy our tickets, Rachel protested. I wanted to. Besides, this was my idea, remember? Lily grabbed his hand without hesitation, something that surprised Rachel. Her daughter had been so guarded around new people since Michael died. But there was something about Daniel that put her at ease. Inside, the aquarium was dim and cool, filled with the sound of bubbling water and the excited chatter of families. Lily pressed her face against the glass of the first tank, watching tropical fish dart between coral formations. Look at that one. It's so colorful. She pointed at a bright orange fish with electric blue stripes. Daniel leaned down to read the information plaque. That's a clownfish. Like from that movie. And did you know they're all born male? But some can change to female if needed. Really? Lily's eyes widened. Really? Nature is full of surprises. They moved through the exhibit slowly, with Daniel reading every plaque to Lily and Rachel snapping photos on her phone. At the touch tank, Daniel rolled up his sleeves and showed Lily how to gently stroke a stingray's back. She squealed when it swam under her fingers. It feels like wet velvet. They're amazing creatures, Daniel said. Did you know stingrays are related to sharks? No way. Rachel watched them from a few feet back, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This felt like a family outing, the kind she'd stopped allowing herself to imagine after Michael died. And that scared her more than she wanted to admit. They stopped for lunch at the Aquarium Cafe, getting overpriced sandwiches and sitting at a table overlooking the main tank. Lily was telling Daniel about a book she'd read about marine biologists when Rachel's phone rang. It was her sister, Claire. Rachel excused herself and stepped away to take the call. "Where are you?" Claire asked. "I stopped by your place with those boxes you wanted. I'm at the aquarium. With Lily and a friend." There was a pause.
"What friend?"
"Just someone." "It's not a big deal, Rachel. You don't have friends you go to aquariums with." "Who is this person?" Rachel sighed and explained briefly about Daniel, about the restaurant, about the dance. Claire's voice rose. "Let me get this straight. You met some random guy who pretended to be your husband and now you're taking him on family outings with my niece? It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" "Rachel, this guy is probably rich, successful, from a completely different world. What happens when he gets bored and moves on? What happens to Lily when another father figure disappears from her life?" The words hit harder than Rachel expected because they echoed her own fears. "I need to go." "Rachel, wait." She hung up and returned to the table, but the lightness she'd felt earlier was gone. Claire was right. What was she doing? Daniel had been kind, but that didn't mean he wanted to be part of their lives long term. People like him didn't date single mothers working middle-class jobs. That was movie stuff, not real life. Daniel noticed the change in her mood immediately. "Everything okay?" "Fine. Just my sister." He didn't push, but Rachel saw him exchange a glance with Lily, who had picked up on the tension. They continued through the aquarium, stopping at the jellyfish exhibit where dozens of translucent creatures pulsed through the water like floating ghosts. The dim purple lighting made everything feel dreamlike. "They're beautiful," Rachel said softly. "And deadly," Daniel added. "Some of them anyway. Nature's full of things that are beautiful and dangerous at the same time." Rachel looked at him. "Is that supposed to be profound?" He laughed. "Maybe. Or maybe I just read too many nature documentaries." At the ocean tunnel, they walked through a glass corridor with fish swimming overhead. Lily ran ahead, spinning in circles as she tried to see everything at once. Daniel and Rachel walked slowly behind her. "Can I ask you something?" Rachel said. "Of course. Why are you doing this? And please don't say it's because you're being nice. People don't spend their Saturdays with strangers' kids just out of niceness." Daniel was quiet for a moment, watching Lily chase a sea turtle's shadow across the floor. "When Victoria and I lost our baby, something broke in me. I threw myself into work because it was easier than feeling anything. I built this successful company, made more money than I knew what to do with, but I went home to an empty apartment every night. When I saw you at that restaurant, sitting alone, trying to be brave on what was clearly a hard day, I saw myself, someone going through the motions. Someone lonely." He turned to look at her. "Helping you, spending time with Lily, it reminds me that life can be more than just surviving." "Does that make sense?" "Yeah," Rachel whispered. "It does. Plus," Daniel added with a small smile, "Lily's teaching me about dolphins and stingrays." "That's valuable knowledge," Rachel laughed despite herself. They caught up with Lily at the penguin exhibit, where she was mimicking their waddle walk and making Daniel laugh so hard he had to lean against the railing. On the drive home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the excitement. Daniel pulled up to Rachel's house and turned off the engine. "Thank you for today," Rachel said. She hasn't been this happy in a long time. "Neither have I." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Daniel spoke again. "I know this is complicated. I know you have concerns, but I meant what I said at the restaurant. No pressure. No expectations. I'm just enjoying getting to know you and Lily. If that's all this ever is, I'm okay with that. Rachel wanted to believe him, but Claire's words kept echoing in her mind. Different worlds. What happens when he moves on? My sister thinks I'm being stupid, she admitted. Getting involved with someone like you. Someone like me? You know what I mean. Successful CEO. Probably used to dating women who wear designer clothes and don't have goldfish crackers permanently stuck in their car seats. Daniel smiled. Those designer-wearing women were usually boring, and I happen to like goldfish crackers. I'm serious. So am I. His expression grew more earnest. Rachel, I don't care about any of that stuff. I spent years caring about what people thought, trying to maintain some image. It made me miserable. You and Lily, you're real. You're genuine. Do you know how rare that is? Before Rachel could respond, Lily stirred in the backseat. Are we home? Yeah, baby. We're home. Daniel helped carry Lily inside. She was half asleep and stumbling. He laid her gently on the couch and Rachel covered her with a blanket. I should go, Daniel said quietly. At the door, Rachel touched his arm. Would you want to come for dinner next Saturday? Nothing fancy. Just spaghetti and whatever conversation a 7-year-old decides is important that night. Daniel's smile could have lit up the whole neighborhood. I would love that. After he left, Rachel sat next to sleeping Lily and opened her laptop. She typed Daniel's name into the search bar, something she'd done before but hadn't really dug into. This time she went deeper. Articles about his company. An interview where he talked about innovation in manufacturing. A charity gala where he donated a large sum to children's hospitals. Then she found an older article from right after his divorce. CEO Daniel Chen's quiet heartbreak, the loss that changed everything. She almost didn't click it, almost respected his privacy. But she needed to understand who this man really was. The article talked about the baby he and Victoria had lost. A daughter. They'd made it to 20 weeks before complications arose. The article mentioned how Daniel had taken a leave of absence from work, how colleagues worried he'd never return to his previous form. But he had returned, throwing himself into work with what the writer called concerning intensity. Rachel closed the laptop, her eyes stinging with tears. Daniel had lost a daughter. She'd lost a husband. They were both walking around with these holes in their lives, trying to figure out how to be whole again. Maybe that's why they understood each other, not because they were from the same world or had similar interests, but because they both knew what it meant to lose something precious and have to keep living anyway. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Thank you for today, really. Sleep well. She typed back, you too. See you next Saturday. As she carried Lily to bed, Rachel realized something had shifted. She was starting to let someone in, and that was terrifying and wonderful all at once. Saturday dinner became a regular thing. Not every week, but often enough that Lily started asking about Daniel when he wasn't around. Often enough that Rachel's mother noticed and started asking pointed questions. Often enough that Rachel's co-workers began commenting on how much happier she seemed. 8 weeks after their first meeting at the restaurant, Daniel invited them to a charity gala his company was sponsoring. Rachel's immediate instinct was to say no. Fancy events with rich people weren't her scene. But Lily overheard the invitation and got excited about Rachel wearing a fancy dress. So somehow Rachel found herself shopping for formal wear on a budget that made her wince. The night of the gala, Daniel picked them up in a car that probably cost more than Rachel made in 2 years. Lily was staying with Rachel's mother for the evening, and she'd made Rachel promise to take pictures. You look beautiful, Daniel said when Rachel opened the door. She'd found a simple navy blue dress that didn't scream clearance rack too loudly. I feel ridiculous. You look perfect. The gala was at a downtown hotel, the kind with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Women in designer gowns glided past, and men in expensive tuxedos discussed business deals over champagne. Rachel felt like she'd walked into a movie. Relax, Daniel whispered, offering his arm. They're just people. Boring people, mostly. His business partner, Robert, found them almost immediately. He was a tall man with sharp eyes that assessed Rachel in about 2 seconds. Daniel, good to see you. His tone was professional but cool. And this must be your guest. Rachel, this is Robert Chen, my business partner and cousin. Robert, this is Rachel. They shook hands, but Rachel didn't miss the way Robert's smile didn't reach his eyes. After exchanging pleasantries, he pulled Daniel aside for what was clearly meant to be a private conversation. But Rachel overheard anyway. Are you sure about this? Robert asked in a low voice. The board already has concerns about your focus. Showing up with a date, especially someone who's not from our usual circles, it's going to raise questions. Let them ask questions, Daniel replied. This isn't just about you. Your personal life affects the company image. Rachel's face burned. She pretended to be fascinated by a nearby ice sculpture, while the cousins continued their tense discussion. When Daniel returned, she could see he was frustrated. I'm sorry about that. It's fine. He's not wrong. I don't exactly fit in here. You fit perfectly. Robert just worries too much about what other people think. But the damage was done. Rachel felt self-conscious for the rest of the cocktail hour, aware of eyes on her, of whispered conversations that stopped when she walked past. Daniel introduced her to several people, executives, investors, clients, and they were all polite. Too polite. The kind of polite that feels like being tolerated. Then she met Patricia Winters, a woman in her 50s who ran a marketing firm and had no patience for pretense. So you're the mystery woman everyone's been gossiping about, Patricia said bluntly, sipping her wine. The one who supposedly changed Daniel's whole personality. Rachel nearly choked on her champagne. I'm sorry? Don't be. It's about time someone shook him up. The boy's been married to his work for 5 years. She leaned in conspiratorially. Between you and me, I was starting to worry he'd forgotten how to be human. You've got him smiling again. That's worth all the pearl clutching from these stuffy old board members. Despite herself, Rachel laughed. You're very direct. At my age, you earn the right. Now tell me, what do you do? I'm an architect. Well, project manager at an architectural firm. Patricia's eyes lit up. Really? Daniel's been talking about expanding into sustainable building projects. You two should discuss that. Might turn this accidental romance into a brilliant business partnership. Before Rachel could respond, a woman's voice cut through the conversation. Daniel, how lovely to see you here. It was Victoria, Daniel's ex-wife, in a stunning red dress that probably cost more than Rachel's monthly rent. She wasn't alone. A handsome man in his 30s stood beside her, his hand on her lower back. Victoria. Daniel's voice was carefully neutral. This is Rachel. Rachel, my ex-wife, Victoria, and her husband, Andrew. The four of them stood in an awkward circle. Andrew seemed pleasant enough, shaking Rachel's hand warmly. But Victoria studied Rachel with an expression that was hard to read. So you're the one taking Lily to aquariums? Victoria said. Sophie told me all about it. She was quite jealous. Rachel wasn't sure how to respond. Lily loves marine life. Lily's her daughter, Daniel explained to Andrew. She's 7. Brilliant kid. Victoria's expression shifted slightly. How did Michael die? If you don't mind my asking. The bluntness of the question caught Rachel off guard. Heart attack. 3 years ago, I'm sorry. That must be difficult raising a child alone. There was something in Victoria's tone that Rachel couldn't quite identify. Not quite sympathy, not quite judgment. Maybe recognition. We manage, Rachel said simply. Victoria turned to Daniel. Could I speak with you privately for a moment? Daniel glanced at Rachel, who nodded. She watched them walk to a quieter corner of the room. Victoria speaking urgently while Daniel listened with crossed arms. Don't worry about her, Andrew said kindly. Victoria means well, but she never quite figured out the art of letting go. Were you friends with Daniel before? No. I met Victoria 2 years after their divorce. I know the basics of what happened between them, but I try to stay out of it. Ancient history and all that, he smiled. For what it's worth, I haven't seen Daniel this relaxed in the year I've known him. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. When Daniel returned, he looked tired. Ready to get some fresh air? They stepped onto the hotel's balcony overlooking the city. The night was cool and Rachel shivered slightly. Daniel shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders without asking. What did Victoria want? Daniel sighed. To warn me, apparently. She said I'm moving too fast, that I don't really know you, that I should be careful about getting involved with someone who has a child. She's probably right. She's probably scared, Daniel corrected. When we were together, she wanted me to open up, to be vulnerable, to let her in. But I couldn't. I was too wrapped up in work, too afraid of failing. Now she sees me doing all those things with someone else, and it probably hurts. Rachel leaned against the railing. Am I making your life complicated? Yes, but in the best possible way. Your business partner doesn't think so. Your ex-wife doesn't think so. And honestly, I'm not sure I think so either. Daniel moved to stand beside her. Rachel, look at me, she did. His eyes were earnest in the dim light from the ballroom. I spent 5 years building a company and losing myself in the process. I measured success by quarterly earnings and board approval ratings. I dated women who looked perfect on paper and felt nothing. And I was miserable. Then I met you, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to actually care about something beyond profit margins. But your partner is right. Your life would be simpler without us in it. Simpler, maybe, but emptier. And I'm done with empty. They stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of the party muffled behind them. Then Rachel's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw you at the gala tonight. Who does she think she is? Gold digger alert. Her stomach dropped. Then another text came through, this time with a photo. A picture someone had taken of her and Daniel on the balcony. Another message followed. This is news. Daniel Chen's mystery woman. Better hope you're ready for the spotlight. What's wrong? Daniel saw her face. She showed him the phone. His jaw tightened. It's probably one of the gossip bloggers. They always show up at these events. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Rachel, no, listen. I have a normal life, a normal job, a daughter who needs stability. I can't have people digging into my past, taking pictures of me, questioning my motives. Lily doesn't need that kind of attention. We'll handle it together. Will we? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I'm a complication you don't need. Your partner thinks so. Your ex-wife thinks so. And these random people with cameras definitely think so. Daniel took her hands. I don't care what they think, but I do. I have to. Because unlike you, I can't just brush off gossip and speculation. I have a daughter to protect. The conversation was interrupted by Robert appearing at the balcony door. Daniel, sorry to interrupt, but the board chair wants a word before dinner. Daniel looked torn. Can it wait? Not really. He turned back to Rachel. Don't leave, please. Let me handle this and then we'll talk properly. Rachel nodded, but as soon as he left, she felt the weight of everything pressing down on her. She pulled out her phone and called her sister. You were right, she said when Claire answered. This was a mistake. By the time Daniel returned 15 minutes later, Rachel had already called a cab. He found her in the hotel lobby. You're leaving. I think it's better this way. Rachel, please, don't let some random blogger scare you away. It's not just the blogger. It's everything. Your world and my world, they don't mix, and I won't put Lily through watching another person leave her life when this inevitably falls apart. Who says it has to fall apart? Statistics. Common sense. The fact that your business partner is probably right. You need someone who fits your lifestyle, not a single mother with a modest income and a used car. Daniel's expression was pained. That's not fair, maybe not. But it's realistic. The cab arrived. Rachel shrugged off Daniel's jacket and handed it to him. Thank you for everything you've done for us. You're a good man, but this needs to end before someone gets hurt. I think we're past that point, Daniel said quietly. Rachel didn't respond. She got in the cab and didn't look back, even though every part of her wanted to. At home, she paid the babysitter and checked on Lily, who was fast asleep. Then she sat in her dark living room and cried for the second time in 3 years. The first time was when Michael died. This time was for something she was choosing to kill before it could fully live. 2 weeks passed without a word from Daniel. Rachel told herself it was better this way. Lily asked about him 3 times before Rachel had to sit her down and explain that sometimes adults drift apart, and that was okay. Lily cried, which broke Rachel's heart all over again. Work became Rachel's refuge. She threw herself into a new shopping center project, staying late at the office and double-checking calculations that didn't need double-checking. Her boss, Margaret, noticed. You're going to burn yourself out, Margaret said one evening, finding Rachel still at her desk at 7:30. I'm fine, just focused. Margaret sat on the edge of Rachel's desk. You're not fine. You've been miserable for 2 weeks. Whatever happened with that man you were seeing, maybe it's worth fixing. We weren't really seeing each other, and it's complicated. Everything worth having is complicated. Before Rachel could respond, Margaret's assistant knocked on the door frame. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone in the conference room asking for Rachel. Says it's about a new project proposal. Rachel exchanged a glance with Margaret. They weren't expecting any new proposals. Did they give a name? Daniel Chen from Chen Manufacturing. Rachel's heart stopped. Tell him I'm busy. Rachel, Margaret said firmly, go talk to him. If nothing else, it's rude to leave a potential client waiting. With shaking hands, Rachel walked to the conference room. Daniel stood by the window looking at the city lights. He'd lost weight, she noticed, and there were shadows under his eyes. You shouldn't be here, she said. He turned. Probably not. But I needed to see you. Daniel, let me say this first. Please. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase and laid it on the conference table. Chen Manufacturing wants to fund a community center in the downtown area. Youth programs, after-school activities, a library, recreational facilities. We want your firm to design it. Rachel stared at the folder. You're offering us a project? A legitimate business opportunity. I talked to Margaret last week. She seemed interested, and your firm's portfolio is impressive. This isn't charity. It's business. You talked to my boss behind my back? I talked to her as a potential client. The fact that you work here is coincidental. Rachel opened the folder. The budget was substantial. This kind of project could be career-defining. Why? Because the community needs it. Because your firm is good at what you do. And because regardless of what happens between us personally, I meant what I said at the restaurant. No pressure, no expectations. You're doing this to get me back. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. Whether you speak to me again or not, that center is getting built and I want the best architects working on it. He moved toward the door. Margaret has my contact information. Think about it. Wait, Rachel's voice stopped him. That's it? You show up with some grand gesture and then just leave? What do you want me to do? I respected your decision. You said we were from different worlds, that it wouldn't work. I'm not going to force myself into your life. But you'll offer my company a massive contract? Yes, because you're talented and this project needs talent. Don't turn down a career opportunity because we had a personal relationship. Rachel felt her carefully constructed walls cracking. Lily asks about you. Every day. She wants to know when you're coming over for dinner again. Daniel's expression softened. How is she? Sad, confused. She doesn't understand why you disappeared. I disappeared because you asked me to. I know. Rachel sat down heavily in one of the conference room chairs. My sister thinks I'm an idiot for pushing you away. My mother thinks I'm scared. And they're probably both right. Daniel sat across from her. For what it's worth, I'm scared too. Of what? Of failing. Of not being enough. When Victoria and I lost our daughter, it destroyed us. I threw myself into work because I couldn't face the grief. She found someone else because she couldn't face being with someone so emotionally unavailable. I've spent 5 years convinced I'm not capable of being what someone needs. But you were exactly what Lily needed. What I needed was, past tense. Rachel looked down at her hands. The night of the gala, those messages, the gossip, it reminded me how easily things can fall apart. When Michael died, it was so sudden. One day we were fine, planning Lily's birthday party, and the next day he was gone. I couldn't control any of it. And I swore I would never put Lily through that kind of loss again. So you created loss before it could happen naturally. The words hit hard because they were true. Rachel had been so busy protecting herself and Lily from potential pain that she'd caused pain anyway. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I ran away. I'm sorry I made this harder than it needed to be. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder. I should have called, should have shown up at your door, should have made you talk to me. Why didn't you? Because you asked me not to. And I thought respecting your wishes was more important than what I wanted. They sat in silence for a moment, hands clasped across the conference table. Then Rachel laughed softly. This is ridiculous. We're sitting in my office conference room having a relationship conversation over a business proposal. Want to go somewhere else? I want to finish this conversation properly, without running away this time. They ended up at a quiet coffee shop near Rachel's office. Over terrible coffee and stale muffins, they talked honestly for the first time. Daniel admitted that his work obsession was partly fear of being vulnerable. Rachel admitted that her independence was partly fear of needing anyone. My therapist would have a field day with both of us, Daniel joked. You see, a therapist? Started 3 years ago. After the divorce. Best decision I ever made, honestly. Rachel stirred her coffee. I stopped going after Michael died. Insurance didn't cover it, and I told myself I was fine. Were you? Not even close. Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. It's Robert. The board meeting's running late. I should... He stopped himself. Actually, no. They can wait. This is more important. You sure? Very sure. For 5 years, I've prioritized work over everything else. I'm done with that, Rachel smiled. Your business partner is going to hate me even more. Robert will adjust, and if he doesn't, that's his problem. They talked until the coffee shop closed at 10, about Lily's upcoming science fair project, about Daniel's plan to cut back on business travel, about how Rachel wanted to take some architecture courses to update her skills. Small things, normal things, the kind of things people talk about when they're building a life together. Walking to Rachel's car, Daniel asked, "Can I see you and Lily this weekend?" No pressure. Just dinner, maybe a movie if she wants. She'd love that. But Daniel, I need you to understand something. Lily's been through a lot. If you're going to be part of her life, you need to be sure. I can't have her get attached and then watch you leave. I'm sure. Are you? Rachel took a breath. I'm terrified, but I'm sure. He kissed her then, gentle and unhurried, in the parking lot under the streetlights. When they pulled apart, Rachel was smiling. About that community center project, she said. I'm interested, professionally speaking. Good, because I might have already told Margaret you were the lead designer I wanted. You did what? Confidence in your abilities. That's all? Rachel laughed and shook her head. You're impossible. You like it? Unfortunately, I do. The following Saturday, Daniel came for dinner. Lily launched herself at him the moment he walked through the door, and he caught her with ease. They made spaghetti together. Well, Rachel and Lily made spaghetti while Daniel mostly got in the way and made them laugh. After dinner, while Lily worked on her science fair poster at the kitchen table, Rachel and Daniel did dishes together. It was domestic and ordinary and perfect. I've been thinking, Daniel said, handing her a plate to dry. What if the community center had a marine education component? A small aquarium, maybe, or at least educational exhibits about ocean conservation. Lily's head snapped up from her poster. Really? That would be so cool. Well, we'd need our lead architect to approve it, Daniel said, glancing at Rachel. Think it's feasible? Rachel pretended to consider it seriously. I'll have to check the budget and the space requirements, but tentatively, yes. Lily squealed and went back to her poster with renewed energy, already talking about what kinds of fish they should include. You know she's never going to stop talking about this now, Rachel said quietly. Good. Passion is important. A month later, Rachel presented the preliminary designs for the community center to Daniel's board. She'd worked harder on that presentation than anything in her career. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before the board chair started asking questions. Technical questions, budget questions, timeline questions. Daniel sat in the corner of the room, not speaking, letting Rachel handle it on her own merits. She appreciated that more than he probably knew. The board approved the project unanimously. Afterward, in the hallway, Robert approached Rachel. That was impressive. I understand now why Daniel was so insistent on your firm. Thank you. He hesitated. I owe you an apology. At the gala, I was concerned about Daniel's judgment. I thought he was making decisions based on emotion rather than logic. But watching you present today, seeing the quality of your work, I was wrong. You earned this opportunity. I appreciate you saying that. For what it's worth, I haven't seen my cousin this happy in years, so thank you for that too. The community center broke ground 6 months later. At the ceremony, Daniel gave a speech about community investment and sustainable development. But then he did something unexpected. This center will be called the Michael Torres Memorial Community Center, he announced. Named after a man who, by all accounts, was a devoted father and husband. A man who left behind a legacy of love and dedication. His daughter Lily suggested the name, and we all agreed it was perfect. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Lily stood beside her, holding her hand, beaming with pride. They'd talked about it, of course. Daniel had asked permission weeks ago,